So today we're going to be doing the next 25 problems of this practice test, and as always, feel free to pause and do the problems before I do them. So without further ado, let's get started. So this question asks, what is the fifth root of the fourth root of the third root of the second root of n? So you have to recall that the square root of n, or really any degree root of n, is just going to be equal to n to the half in this case, or it's just going to be n to the 1, let's call this t. That's not a t, depending on whatever the root is here. So all we have to do for this is first n to the half, that comes from this, then multiply by a third, which comes from the cube root, then multiply by a fourth, which comes from the fourth root, then multiply it by a fifth. That should come out to be n to the 1/120th, and that's our answer, letter D right here. So number 27 asks, which of the following is the equation of a line with x-intercept 6, 0 and y-intercept 0, -15? So for this problem, what we have to do is first we're going to find out the slope of the line by using the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And our y2 is -15 minus 0 divided by 0 minus 6, and then our slope is going to be 15/6, which is equal to 5/2. So that's m in our equation. And then it gives us our y-intercept, so all we have to do is just plug that in. So we're going to do y equals 5/2 x, because 5/2 is our slope, and then -15, because that's our y-intercept, and that's our equation. So that's going to be letter A. So this question asks, which of the following describes the right and left behavior of the graph of this function? And so we're going to have to use something called the leading coefficient test. And so we just want to see the degree of the leading coefficient and the sign of the leading coefficient. So the sign is negative and the degree is odd, which means that the graph rises left and falls right. So it's going to look kind of like it rises left and falls right. And so our answer is going to be letter D. This question asks, if x plus 2 is a factor of this equation right here, then k equals. So you have to recall that x plus 2 means that x plus 2 equals 0. That's a factor. So that x equals -2 is going to be an x-intercept. So we're going to have to change all of these x's to -2 to find out the value of k, and that's the easiest way to go about it. So -2 to the fourth plus -2 cubed plus 3 -2 squared plus -2k minus 10. And then that's going to be set to 0. And then that's going to just come out to be -2k plus 10 equals 0. I'm just skipping the steps for the sake of time. -2k is going to be equal to -10, and k is equal to 5. And that's going to be our answer, letter E right here. So this question asks, by the rational root test, how many possible rational roots does this equation have? So the rational root test states that if a polynomial function has integer coefficients, so these are the integer coefficients, then every rational 0 is going to be p over q, but it's going to be their factors. So we want to find out the factors of 6 and the factors -15. So the factors of the leading term and the factors of the constant. So 6 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 6, and then this is going to be 1, 15, or let me write them in order. 1, 3, 5, 15. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and write out the p's over q's, but feel free to do it by yourself. So it's going to turn out that we have 24 P's over Q's, so our answer is going to be letter D, which is 24. So this question asks us, in figure 3, two segments are tangent to a circle of radius 3. Points S and T are the points of tangency, so these 2 points. What is the length of ST? So to solve this, first we're going to draw a radius from this midpoint to T. Let me just make that look better, to T. And then we're also going to draw an angle bisector from this midpoint to point P. So this is going to become a right angle. This is going to become 15 degrees. We know that this is a length of 3, and then this is 75 degrees. And one's a length of ST, right? So we want to find out what this side is. So we can go ahead and find it using x equals r cosine theta. So x is going to be equal to 3 cosine 15, which is 2.9, around that number. And then ST is just going to be twice that value because we found this. Then we're going to want to find that times 2. So 2.9 times 2 should come out to be around 5.8. And that's letter C right here. So this question asks us $2,500 is invested at a rate of 4.5% compounded monthly, and the value of the investment can be modeled by this equation. So how long will it take for the investment to double? So we're going to set A equal to 5,000 because 5,000 is 2,500 times 2, and we want to double our investment. So 5,000 equal to 2,500 multiplied by 1 plus 0.045 over 12 to the 12t. We're going to divide both sides by 2,500 because we want to end up isolating this t. So 2 is equal to 5 over 12 to the 12t. And then I'm just going to reduce this to a decimal. So let's see what that is. 0.045 over 12. That's going to be 2 equals 1.00375 to the 12t. And then we're going to take the log of both sides. So log 2 is equal to 12t log 0.0375. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 12 and this. So log 2 by 12 log 1.00375. And that's going to give us t equals 15.4, which is letter B right here. So that's our answer. So this question asks, if the second term of an arithmetic sequence is 7 and the sixth term is 23, then what is the 90th term of the sequence? So first we're going to write out our formula for finding the nth term of an arithmetic sequence. So that's going to be a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 multiplied by d. And then we're going to find out what d is. So to find d, we're going to find the difference between a sub 6 and a sub 2. And then 6 minus 2 is 4, so we're going to divide that by 4. This is a sub 6 minus a sub 2. But that's how far apart those terms are in terms of n, if that makes sense. So this is going to be 16 over 4. That's just going to be 4, so that's our value for d. And then here we can just plug in 90 into this formula and 4. So a sub 90. Well, actually, first we have to find out a sub 1. So we already know what a sub 2 is. So a sub 2 is equal to 7. And then if we just subtract 4, then we'll get a sub 1. So a sub 1 is going to be equal to 3. And then we can plug it into our formula. So a sub 90 is equal to 3 plus 90 minus 1 multiplied by 4. And so let me just check what that is. That's going to come out to be 359. That's our answer here. So number 34 asks the product of this number and this number contains how many digits. So all you have to do for this is literally just plug it into your calculator. So times 1, 2, 3, 4. And you should get something in your calculator like 5.6 something something times e to the 16th, which means that it's this one digit and then 16 more digits following. So the answer is going to be 17 because 1 plus 16 is 17. Okay, so number 35 asks, which of the following equations has the graph shown in figure 4? So the amplitude of this graph is 1/2 because this is 1, this is -1, and it's only going one, its peak is 1/2 and its trough, I'm not sure how you say that word, but that's also 1/2. So its amplitude is 1/2 and its period is pi. So then we would know that the equation is half sine 2x, and that is our answer here. Because the period is reduced by half, and the amplitude is also reduced by half, but whatever we do here in this term is, well, we have to do the inverse, so that's what we did there. So in triangle ABC in figure 5, AB is 3.4, x equals 43 degrees, and y equals 29 degrees. What is the length of side BC? So triangle ABC we have right here, AB is 3.4, x is 43 degrees, and y is 29 degrees. What is the length of side BC? All we have to do for this is just use the law of sines. So sine of 29 over 3.4, because that's the opposite side, equals sine of 43 over BC. And let me just put down my calculator. Remember to switch to degree mode if you are already in radian. So that's going to be 3.4 sine 43 divided by sine 29. That's going to come out to be 4.78, which is letter A right here. So this question asks, Pam has a term average of 84% in history. If this makes up 75% of her overall grade and the final exam makes up the remaining 25%, what will her overall grade be if she receives a 92% on her final exam? So this is a weighted average. So we know that 0.75 is her is how the term average is weighted, and 0.25 is how the final is weighted. So all we have to do is do the term average. So 0.75 times 84 plus 0.25, which is her final exam, times her grade, so 92. And 0.75 times 84 plus 0.25 times 92, that's going to come out to be 86%. That's letter D right here. So number 38 asks, what is the length of the segment? That's not an underline. What is the length of the segment connecting this point to this point? So all this is just the distance formula, but in 3 dimensions. So if you haven't gone over it in pre-calc, don't worry, it's literally just the distance formula. So that's going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared plus z2 minus z1. Z is the 3rd dimension, so that's going to be signified by 1 and -3 here. So I'm just going to put in the work here real quick. So you should end up with something around 12.1, and that's letter B right here. So 39 asks, a line has parametric equations x equals 8 minus t and y equals 10 plus 2t, where t is the parameter. What is the slope of the line? So all parametric equations are really just a system of equations, and we're going to start by solving for t in x equals 8 minus t. So we can put our equation in y equals mx plus b form. So x equals 8 minus t. So then we're going to take this negative t, put it on this side. We're going to add t to both sides. So t plus x equals 8. and then t is equal to negative x plus 8 because we're going to subtract x from both sides. Negative x plus 8. And then we're going to plug this t into y equals 10 plus 2t. So it's going to become y equals 10 plus 2 negative x plus 8. And so we have y equals negative 2x. And that's really all we need. We just need the coefficient of the x term. And then all this other stuff comes after. So of course we have plus 16, plus 10, and then we can go with plus 26. But really it's just this coefficient that matters. And so we have it in y equals mx plus b form, and m is equal to negative 2, which is what the question is asking for. So that's our answer B right here. Okay, so this question asks, the operation, this letter, is defined for all real numbers a and b by the equation that's stated right here. So if this is 70, what could equal n? So this says right here that, so in this case, a would be n and b would be negative 2. So n to negative 2 minus 3 multiplied by negative 2, because remember that this is b and this is not that, and that's an arrow, this is a, and so n squared plus 6 is equal to 70. And then we're just gonna subtract 2 from both sides, so n squared is equal to 64, and n is equal to plus or minus 8. So that's our letter C right here. So that's our answer. So this question asks, in figure 3, the length of each edge of the cube is s. If a and b are midpoints of the two edges, what is the perimeter of ABCD? Alright, so this question tells us that the length of each edge of the cube is s. So s, 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 s. And so the side AD is the hypotenuse of a right triangle. And so using that, we can find the length of AD. So we know that this is S, and we know that this is S over 2. So by using the Pythagorean theorem, we have AD squared to S over 2 squared plus S squared. So we know that AD is going to be equal to S root 5 over 2. And so the perimeter is going to be 2s plus s root 5 because AD is equal to BC. So the perimeter is 2s plus, that's not the right answer, it's C, 2s plus s root 5. So 42 asks, what is the length of the major axis of an ellipse whose equation is 12x squared plus 8y squared plus 48? So first, we want to put it in the standard form of an ellipse, so we're going to divide both sides by 48. So we're going to end up with x squared over 4 plus y squared over 6 is equal to 1. And in this case, a is greater than b. So a is greater than b, and a is equal to root 6. So we know that the length of the major axis is going to be 2 times a, or 4.9. That is letter C right here. So 43 asks, what is the x-intercept of the line tangent to the circle x squared plus y squared equals 1 at the point 3/5, 4/5? So let's go ahead and draw that. So 3/5, 4/5. So first we want to find the slope of this line. So we're going to do 4/5 over 3/5. So that's going to be 4/3 equals m. And then the slope of the perpendicular line, which is also known as the tangent line, we want it to go like this, is going to be negative 3/4 because that's just negative 1 over m. And so we want to find it in point slope form. So let's go ahead and do that. So y minus 4/5 equal to negative 3/4 multiplied by x minus 3/5. That's going to turn out to be y equals, let me just clear that out, y equals negative 3/4 x plus 5/4, or in other words, 1.25, because that's the same number as 5/4. So number 44 asks, what is the limit of this equation as x approaches 3? So this equation as x approaches 3. And so right off the bat, what we want to do is just factor this. So that's going to be 3x plus 2 times x minus 3 over x minus 3 times x plus 3. These terms are going to be eliminated. And now all we have to do is, well, first let's write this out. This is our reduced equation. And then all we have to do is just substitute in 3 into this. So that's going to be 9 plus 2 over 3 plus 3, which is also equal to 11 over 6. And that's going to give us 1.8. So 1.8 is our answer. Okay, the next question asks, if a function is an odd function, then this is true for all values of x in the domain, which of the following is an odd function? And the answer is automatically A, because just by rules, sine of x is an odd function. That's just how it is. And if you want to memorize that, then go ahead. That's very useful information. And the rule goes that cosine is even and the other two are odd. So tangent and sine are odd. So this question asks if this expression or this equation over the interval 180 to 360 is, well, if this equation is equal to 0 over this interval, then x equals. So we're going to factor this first. So that's going to come out to be 4 sine x minus 1 multiplied by 3 sine x plus 1, 0. So then x is equal to 14.5, and x is also equal to 19.5. So then from the interval 180 to 360, the only two answers that are also this plus or minus 180 or 270 would be 199.47 and 340.53. And so letter E is our answer. So 47 asks, if I squared is negative 1, then which of the following equals 15 minus 8i to the half power? So this is asking for the square root. So what we're going to do is we're going to square each answer to find if it is 15 minus 8i. And so the answer is letter B, just to avoid squaring all of these, and that takes quite a bit of time. So 4 minus I divided by 4 minus I. So that's going to give us 16 plus, or actually minus 8i plus 1. And then that's going to be 15 minus 8i. So the answer is letter B. 48, I'm going to just write down the work and feel free to do it by yourself. So it's a relatively simple problem. You just have to remember some trig identities. So it comes out to be cosecant squared of theta. That's answer letter B right here. So the next question asks, what is the sum of the infinite series that is stated here? So what is the sum? And so the first term is a sub 1 equals 1, and our r is going to be negative 1/5, because 1 times negative 1/5 gives us negative 1/5, and then if we multiply 1/5 by that again, we get 1 over 25, and so on and so on. So the sum of an infinite series is equal to a sub 1 over 1 minus r. So in this case, the sum is going to be equal to 1 over 1 plus 1/5, 1 over 6/5, which is equal to 5/6. So letter A is our answer, just like that. So the last question, number 50, asks, what is the middle term in the expansion of this? So what you want to remember is that our degree is 8 and our r is 4. So r equals 4 because we want the middle term. So we want to do 8 choose 4. So in that notation, I'm going to write 8 choose 4. And then as I said, our R is 4. So the degree of the second term in this expansion, or rather in this expression, is to the R term, and then the A term, which is 3x, is to 8 minus R. So that's also going to be 4 because it's just the middle term. So 3x to the 4th multiplied by negative 1/3 y to the 4th. And let me just check with my calculator what that gives us. So 8 choose 4 multiplied by 3 to the 4th times negative 1/3 to the 4th. That's 70. So that's letter D. And that concludes this practice test. So thank you for watching as always, and feel free to leave questions down in the comments.